Hello and welcome back to our series of the lectures on philosophy of mind. I am Dr. Ananya Barua, Associate Professor in the Department of Philosophy, Hindu College. Our topic for today is on identity theory and functionalism. Today we will continue our discussions on philosophy of mind vis-a-vis yet another topic which is on identity theory and functionalism. Now that we have studied the history of philosophy of mind and checked out its criticisms in details of Cartesian dualism from Princess of Bohemia, Elizabeth, to the very recent Gilbert Ryle, it is time to move on to the next segment of our discussion. Today's discussion is about the various theories that connect the mind to body. The two most popular theories are identity theory and functionalism. Let us start with the basic distinctions of the both to begin with. The basic distinction between identity theory and functionalism in the philosophy of mind lies in how each theory conceptualizes the nature of mental states and their relationship to the physical brain. The core idea in identity theory posits that each mental state is identical to a specific physical state of the brain. For example, the mental state of experiencing pain is exactly the same as the physical state of certain neurons firing in a specific pattern. Type identity. The theory often suggests that specific types of mental states, example, pain, belief, desire, correspond to specific types of brain states. This means that every time someone experiences pain, the same type of brain state such as C fiber activation occurs. Physicalist and reductionist. Identity theory is both physicalist. It claims that mental states are physical, and reductionist. It claims that mental states can be fully explained by brain states. Now let's discuss quickly about functionalism. Unlike identity theory, functionalism, on the other hand, defines mental states by the roles or functions they play within the cognitive system rather than by the specific physical states they are made of. According to functionalism, what makes something a mental state is not its physical constitution, but rather how it functions in relation to other mental states, sensory inputs and behavioral outputs. Multiple realizability. Functionalism allows for multiple realizability, meaning that the same mental state can be realized by different physical states in different beings. For example, pain could be realized by different neural configurations in humans, animals, or even machines, as long as these configurations perform the same functional role. Functionalism is not tied to physical substance. Functionalism is not committed to any specific physical substrate, which that is a mental state could, in theory, be realized by non-neural systems such as computer circuits as long as the functional relationships are preserved. Now, if we see the key distinctions between identity theory and functionalism, we will notice that identity theory is concerned with the specific physical states that constitute mental states, asserting a direct identity between mental and brain states. Functionalism, on the other hand, is concerned with the role of function of mental states within the system, regardless of the physical substrate that realizes them, making it more flexible in explaining how different organizations or systems can have similar mental states despite differences in their physical makeup. So one can at best say that identity theory focuses on the physical identity of mental states with brain states, while functionalism focuses on the functional roles that mental states play, regardless of how they are physically instantiated. Now, what is the take of the material mind from the identity theory and functionalist perspective? This is one of the research questions that we will be interested in taking up at this section. Both identity theory and functionalism offer different perspectives on the concept of the material mind, which refers to the idea that the mind is a physical entity or is fully grounded in the physical world. Here's how each theory approaches the concept of the material mind. Identity theory and the material mind. Identity theory explicitly supports the notion of the material mind by asserting that mental states are identical to physical states in the brain. This means that every mental experience, thought, or emotion is fundamentally a physical process occurring in the brain. Identity theory and the material mind vis-a-vis materialism. Identity theory is a materialist theory because it posits that all mental phenomena are physical in nature. There are no non-physical aspects of the mind. What we consider mental states like pain, belief, or desire are nothing more than particular configurations of neurons and synapses. The implication of these connects of identity theory and the material theory is that under the identity theory, the material mind is directly tied to the physical brain with no room for dualism. The idea that the mind and body are separate substances. The mind is fully material and understanding the brain's physical process is equivalent to understanding the mind. Now, we will focus on functionalism and its implication on the material mind. Functionalism, as we had noticed, also aligns with the concept of the material mind, but does so in a more abstract way. While it agrees that mental states are grounded in physical processes, it doesn't insist that these processes must be of a specific physical nature, like a specific neural configurations. Materialism with flexibility. Functionalism is compatible with materialism as it assumes that mental states are realized by physical processes. However, it emphasizes the function or role of these states rather than their physical makeup. What matters is not the specific material, but the way the material realizes mental functions. Multiple realizability vis-a-vis functionalism and the material world. Functionalism allows for the possibility that different physical systems, even non-biological ones, like computers, could give rise to the same mental states as long as they perform the same functions. This suggests a more flexible view of the material mind, where the mind is material but not tied to any particular kind of material, example, neurons versus silicon chips. So the comparison of the identity theory takes a more rigid, specific approach to the material mind by identifying mental states directly with particular physical brain states. It sees the mind as wholly material and inseparable from the brain's specific physical properties. Functionalism offers a more abstract and flexible view, suggesting that while the mind is material, what is important is not the specific material itself, but the functional role it plays. The mind could, in theory, be realized in different physical substrates as long as the same functions are maintained. In summary, both these theories, identity and functionalism, uphold the concept of the material mind. But identity theory does so by directly linking mental states to specific physical brain states, while functionalism does so by focusing on the functional roles that these states play, allowing for multiple kinds of material realizations. Now that we have been given a broad view or an overview of identity theory, functionalism vis-a-vis the concept of the material mind, let us now discuss each of these theories at length. Identity theory in the philosophy of mind is a prominent theory that seeks to explain the relationship between the mind and the body, specifically the mind and the brain. This theory argues that mental states are identical to physical states of the brain. It is a physicalist theory, meaning that it holds that everything that exists is physical, or at least supervenes on the physical. Let us explore the main components and variants of identity theory, including materialism and functionalism. Materialism is the broader philosophical doctrine that asserts that everything that exists is material or physical. In the context of the mind, materialism claims that mental states, processes, and consciousness are entirely physical phenomena. There are non-physical or mental substances. Everything that is considered mental is reducible to physical processes, particularly those in the brain. The key ideas of the material mind vis-a-vis materialism are A. Physicalism. This is the view that everything that exists is physical or depends on the physical world. In the philosophy of mind, physicalism suggests that mental states are physical states. Reductionism. Mental states can be reduced to physical processes in the brain. For example, the sensation of pain is nothing more than a certain type of neural activity. Identity theory, also known as type identity theory or mind-brain identity theory, is a more specific form of materialism. It asserts that every type of mental state is identical to a type of physical state in the brain. For instance, the mental state of feeling pain is identical to the specific type of brain state, like the firing of C fibers, a type of nerve fiber associating with pain. Under identity theory, as we have just about discussed the type identity, there is also the second one, token identity. The type identity, as we had just about mentioned, suggests that every particular type of mental state corresponds to a particular type of brain state. For example, the belief that it is raining is identical to a particular neural configuration in the brain. Token identity. A related but less strict theory suggests that each individual instance or token of a mental state is identical to some physical state, but it does not commit to the same type of mental state, always corresponding to the same type of physical state. Now, we would like to see some of the challenges that the identity theory might face. Multiple realizability. One of the major objections to identity theory is the argument from multiple realizability, which suggests that the same mental state could be realized by different physical states in different organisms. For instance, pain might be realized by different neural mechanisms in humans, octopuses, or robots. The problem of qualia. Another challenge is the problem of qualia. The subjective reality of experiences like the redness of red cannot be properly identified. Critics argue that identity theory fails to account for the subjective first-person aspects of consciousness. Now, coming to functionalism. Functionalism is yet another theory in the philosophy of mind that arose partly in response to the challenges faced by identity theory. Functionalism posits that what matters is not the physical substance or structure that realizes a mental state, but the functional role it plays. In other words, a mental state is defined by its causal relationship, the cause and effect, to other mental states, sensory inputs, and behavioral outputs. So, when we now talk about the key concepts of functionalism, we can mention the functional roles. Mental states are identified by their functional roles in the cognitive system, similar to how software functions on a computer, independent of the hardware that runs it. For example, the mental state of pain might be defined as the state that is caused by bodily damage and leads to behaviors like wincing or avoiding them. Multiple realizability. Functionalism accommodates the multiple realizability objection by allowing that different physical states in different organisms or machines can realize the same mental state as long as they perform the same function. Machine functionalism. A variant of functionalism compares mental states to states in a computer program where different physical substrates can implement the same program. Now, what are the challenges of functionalism? The China brain thought experiment. One challenge to functionalism is the China brain thought experiment, which imagines that if every person in China were to stimulate the activity of a single neuron, it would create a functional duplicate of a human brain. However, many argue that such a system wouldn't really have consciousness. Qualia. Like identity theory, functionalism has been criticized for failing to fully account for qualia, the subjective qualitative aspects of experience. So, in the summary, we can say that materialism asserts that the mind is fully material and the mental states are physical states. Identity theory specifically identifies mental states with brain states but faces challenges like multiple realizability and the problem of qualia. Functionalism focuses on the functional roles of mental states rather than their physical realization, offering a more flexible approach that can accommodate multiple realizability, but it still struggles with explaining subjective experiences. Together, these theories provide different perspectives on the nature of the mind, each with its strengths and weaknesses, contributing to the ongoing debates in the philosophy of mind. Now that the background of our today's topic, which was from identity theory and functionalism vis-a-vis the material mind, is clear, we are set to start with today's J.J.C. Smart's Sensation and Brain Processes article. Now, who is J.J.C. Smart? John Jameswell Carswell Jack Smart, often referred to as J.J.C. Smart, was an influential Australian philosopher known for his significant contributions to the philosophy of mind, ethics, and metaphysics. Here is an overview of his life, work, and legacy. J.J.C. Smart was born on September 16, 1920 in Cambridge, England. Smart was the son of William Marshall Smart, a Scottish astronomer. He was educated at New College, Oxford, where he studied Greats, the classics, before serving in World War II. After the war, Smart completed his D.Phil at Oxford under the supervision of the philosopher Gilbert Ryle. In 1950, he moved to Australia, where he became one of the most prominent figures in Australian philosophy. He held academic positions at several Australian universities, including the University of Adelaide and the Australian National University, ANU. At ANU, Smart was a leading figure in the development of what became to be known as the Australian School of Philosophy, which emphasized rigorous analytic philosophy, often with a naturalistic or physicalist orientation. The identity theory of J.J.C. Smart. Smart is best known for his defense in the type identity theory of mind, which he articulated in his 1959 paper Sensations and Brain Processes. This theory posits that mental states like sensations, thoughts, and desires are identical to physical states in the brain. Smart argued against dualism, the idea that the mind and body are separate, and in favor of a reductionist, physicalist view of mind. 1. Materialism. Smart was a leading proponent of materialism, the view that everything that exists is material or physical. His work laid the groundwork for much of the contemporary debate in the philosophy of mind, particularly discussions about the nature of consciousness and the mind-body problem. Ethics, utilitarianism. In ethics, Smart was a strong advocate of utilitarianism, the ethical theory that the right action is the one that maximizes overall happiness or well-being. He wrote influential works on utilitarianism, defending it against various objects and contributing to its development as a major ethical theory. Philosophy of science and metaphysics. Smart also made important contributions to the philosophy of science and metaphysics. He was interested in topics like the nature of time, the philosophy of space, and the theory of knowledge. His work in these areas often reflected his commitment to naturalism and scientific realism. The legacy and influence of J.J.C. Smart, Australian materialism. Smart was a central figure in the development of Australian materialism, a philosophical movement that emphasized a physicalist approach to mind and metaphysics. The movement had a lasting impact on the philosophy of mind, influencing subsequent philosophers like David Armstrong and Eulun Place. Awards and recognition. Smart was widely recognized for his contributions to philosophy. He was elected a Fellow of the Australian Academy of the Humanities, the Academy of the Social Sciences in Australia, and was awarded several honorary degrees. Later life. Smart retired in 1985 but remained active in philosophical discussions and continued to write on various topics. He passed away on October 6, 2012 at the age of 92. We close our first segment on identity and functionalism here. We will continue more in our next segment. Thank you.